From the river to the sea, Palestine. Oh, just kidding. I my grandfather Noah Koenigsberg would be very upset with the way that Jews are comporting themselves these days. Actually, how do you feel about this fucking thing? Last week, you told me that you were sort of dreading talking about it, and I could understand that, but I wasn't exactly sure why. I'm curious.
I have lefty commie friends, and I have Jewish friends, and it's very, very sensitive topic. And having something recorded forever about your position on the oldest civilizational battle that's ever happened that gets people ensconced wasn't something to look forward to necessarily.
Guess which article I was reading just as we were going on. It's entitled, it's a blog post. It was being passed around on Twitter. It's entitled, "You may have just lost all of your Jewish friends and don't even know why." In which it goes on to say that any statement about the war that is not simply a denunciation of Hamas is beyond the pale. Should be. Many people think it should be illegal. It is illegal.
It is.
You know about this in Europe? You know about all this in Europe? Do you see the video of the Dutch cops kicking the shit out of those little Palestinian women waving Palestine flags?
I didn't see that, but we were talking about France last week, outlawing pro-Palestinian protests.
I believe the UK. I think people have been arrested for participating in, what I see as pro-Palestine marches. The authorities call pro-Hamas marches. So I guess the law is about support of terrorism, which is illegal in most European countries, if not all of them. And it's being enacted. I mean, I've seen multiple videos from multiple European countries of Palestinian just protesters in the streets of Europe getting arrested. And cops beating the crap out of them too.
Well, this is kind of a separate but adjacent issue. Domestically, a bunch of red states passed laws where it's illegal to boycott Israel.
Oh no! Wow.
Yeah, the anti-BDE
BDS
boycott divestment sanction. Yeah, bills, and Marco Rubio is trying to get one passed nationally.
You would begin to think that the Jews run the world through a secret cabal. I mean, I get why people think that. There's
or an open one.
There is evidence about right. Well, yeah, that's more the case, I believe. I mean, there is abundant evidence. A lot of weird stuff goes on, like all these people who are politicians who are from Oklahoma and Florida are bending themselves into a pretzel for this little Jewish country across the world. What? Why would Americans care so much about this thing? Now, of course, Jewish Americans, there's this choice that some Jews have made in this country and elsewhere, some to identify with Israel. Most of my Jewish friends and family members never have identified with Israel one bit, could give a fuck about the place. In fact, they'd rather it didn't exist because it's a constant source of heartache for them because they see Jews getting killed. They also feel bad about the Palestinians, but just, if you're a straight up Jewish supremacist nationalist, the most hardcore hill settler Zionist in the world, you need to stop and ask yourself. The number is now 16,000. Jews have been killed in Israel, and they wouldn't have been killed if they lived elsewhere. So the great safe haven homeland that it was supposed to be, the whole point of this was to give them a place to be with their own army if there's a Holocaust again. This is because of the Holocaust, to protect them. Well, they just created their own Holocaust. You don't have to give a shit about the Palestinians. Just look at it from the Jewish point of view. And as I said, my mother, my son's mother, my son, all Jews. So, I care. I care.
You think that's bad? This is a Mark Norman joke, but my family served in World War II and lost.
Right. We don't give a fuck about them.
Yeah.
We don't. Confederates and dead Germans, no, we love them.
Yeah. Oh man. This
Continue
is
to
something
dance. We dance on their graves. Are you kidding? It's
Mhm.
totally cool to like make jokes about killing German conscripts in World War II, people who weren't even Nazis, who were drafted. You know, it's cool to like laugh like Quentin Tarantino does in his movie and so many others about that, when like 90% of them were goddamn conscripts.
Or as you've seen many Israeli officials likening the carpet bombing of Palestine to the firebombing of Dresden, and saying that civilian casualties were necessary in both efforts, and we need a total war annihilation effort, just like we did in World War II.
Israelis are a trip, man. It's a strange little culture. And I've been observing it for many decades. As I said, I've many friends from Israel when I lived in New York, many friends who are Israelis. And just the way they behave, the like outright, like almost comical lies they make have been like, they've admitted to many of these about like shooting journalists and killing civilians in the streets. I mean, they'll always like come out and say, no, of course we didn't do this atrocity. And then like 6 months to a year later, they'll be like, oh yeah, actually we did another review. Like once the news has died down and it comes out, no one knows about it. Like there was a major Al Jazeera journalist who I think is Palestinian. She was in somewhere in the West Bank, I think, reporting on something like a year ago, was it?
Yeah.
Shireen. Shot by the IDF, and IDF was like, no, of course not. Are you kidding? It was Hamas, or it was whatever. It wasn't us. I mean, complete denial for months and months and months. And just, I think last week, or no, just recently, they admitted, oh yeah, no, actually it was the IDF. But no one noticed because it wasn't in the news anymore. They've done this multiple times, bombing like civilian centers deliberately. But you just can't drop a bomb anywhere in Gaza without killing civilians, and most likely children, because once again, half the population is children. Like, it's an emergency. You know, like, why it's just the wildest thing.
Mm-hmm.
The clash, not of civilizations, it's the clash of moralities. You know, it's all about one side saying you must denounce these people as monsters and evil, and the other side saying we are the victims, you are the monsters. Mostly, I mean, I'm trying to be somewhere else in this, but you know, it just the moralizing is on another level. And it seems as if, I would say, the pro-Israel side, though, what they really want, see, the pro-Palestinian side wants withdrawal of Israel from the occupied territories. It's pretty straight up, and it's very material and tangible and clear cut, and everyone knows what it means, whether you agree with it or not. The pro-Israel side, certainly in this country, from all the journalists and everybody, is that you must denounce Hamas. That's all they want. It's like, where does that get us?
Yeah. Or I've seen a lot of interviews where somebody says, I denounce Hamas. Now can we start talking about the carpet bombing? Now can we start talking about...
Or no, just like look, trying to figure out how to like somehow, some way resolve this conflict. Like, let's do that instead. Like, I mean, but that's... So yeah, taught the course last night on the history of Israel-Palestine, and it was great. But I said this in the course. I and most, or I don't know, many people who study this more than I do, are really pessimistic. Even, you know, no matter what side you're on, it's a knot that's so tightly wound. I don't think we can untie it. Because as I said, I don't know if I said this last week, but now we're on which generation of Israelis? I mean, 6, 7 now. So you're now talking about great grandparents, whatever, who were the Zionist settlers who displaced the Palestinians. And now you're like some teenage girl living in Tel Aviv and you need to be, the moral logic is that, yeah, to me, if I don't believe in this way of thinking about politics, but according to like dominant Western morality, they should be removed. I mean, Israelis, it's like, that's a clear cut case of colonization, and we are officially against colonization. So what are you going to tell her, though, that girl in Tel Aviv? And I happen to know some of them, and I know some boys who were like teenagers who live in who are like sons of my good friend in Tel Aviv. I don't know what the fuck to tell them. The Zakim family, like, they've been there for God knows. So this is why what they're doing, it's pretty clear, by the way, if people are wondering what the overall strategy of the IDF and Israel is. I can't prove this, but it sure looks like they're trying to seize the like upper half of Gaza, which happens to be the most urban, most valuable property and land in Gaza, and accomplish maybe two things from that. One is just, again, to extend Israeli borders further and take more land. And two is to force them out, which is one thing I think they really want. They want to, it's incredible. It's exactly what the Nazi Party's official policy was on Jews from 1933 to 1941, the forced migration of them. That's what the official Nazi Party policy was. Not extermination, but definitely forced migration of the Jews out of Germany. And that, I believe, is the unofficial policy of Israel. I think that's what they're going for with Gaza. They're trying to make life so impossible for the people who remain after they all get pushed to the bottom half, which is apparently it's 1.1 million people have been told to move to the southern half. Like, just leave. Okay, go. Where? And it's just, most of it's desert. Most of the southern half is the Negev desert, uninhabitable. So, and then Egypt refuses to take them. It's like epic modern tragedy. We don't see this. We haven't seen this kind of, I wouldn't say it's genocide, but it is genocide-esque. They're trying to wipe out the Gaza population for sure. Yeah. Which I think that actually fits under the definition of genocide. They're a national population. You could call them, they're definitely trying to wipe them out. They want to get rid of them, which again is exactly the policy toward the Jews. Again, maybe this is just some sort of fucking like cosmic revenge by certain Jews. Like they're gonna get the Nazis through the Palestinians somehow, punish them through the Palestinians. But to do to these people almost exactly what was done to them, in terms of, at least until 41. That is, people can. This is the subject of my book coming up. But like, yeah, it was forced migration, which is nasty as hell. And that's what this is. So it's a sickening thought. I don't know. It's really like, we haven't seen, when's the last time we saw a sort of mass scale atrocity like that? Cambodia in the 70s, or like,
I'm not too hip to this, but what's happening just last month with Armenia and Azerbaijan?
Yeah, it's if you look at the conflict over 75 years, it's certainly approaching the Armenian genocide and all that. I don't even know what is the number for Palestinian deaths. And as I've said multiple times, it's 16,000 for Israelis. It's something like 10-1 ratio. So do the math. It's way over 100,000, and they're not a large population to begin with. Holy fuck, the videos. I don't know if you've been on.
Oh yeah, I've just been watching dead babies this all week. Just dead baby. Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
And this stuff is clearly not staged. Like, I saw a video today I posted it on Twitter if anyone wants to see it. I've never seen a war scene like that. ever. Like even in the movies, I haven't seen anything like that. It was an entire fucking city block on top of a bunch of people. Some of whom were alive, some of whom were half alive, and many of whom were totally dead. And it was an entire city block like that had just been hit, and like just on bodies, some of them writhing, like dozens of bodies, and then many people running around trying to save people, and holy shit. And they were all clearly just civilians. Like clearly they're just civilians. These look like dudes who are running shops. You know, there's a lot of shops around, right? A lot of open air markets in Gaza. All right, let's talk about comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the comedy scene in Gaza? I bet there is one.
Maybe. I don't know. There is a great Middle Eastern sense of humor, like deadpan. Did you see that guy who went on?
No, there is.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Tell me more.
Oh, the Egyptian TV host Bassem Youssef, I believe is his name. Yeah. He was just on Piers Morgan. Yeah, right? And he grilled Piers Morgan in the funniest of all possible ways, like saying, I totally understand the plight of the Israeli people. I am married to a Palestinian. I've been trying to kill her for years. She will not die.
She will not die. No matter what you do to her, she will not die. The bitch just won't go. You can just kick the fuck out of her. She's still there. God damn it. Still causing trouble for me. But mostly just still living. That's the worst part. They're just still fucking there. It's true.
Yeah.
I've only seen like little clips from that interview. I should watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, that's baller. I love that. That's God. To and also to like intervene. Listen to this. Like to intervene in this debate with humor.
Yeah.
Like who does that? That is incredibly baller. And then to pull it off, like he's gotten rave reviews. I haven't seen anybody like trying to denounce him or anything. Wow. I need to watch that whole thing. And he's Egyptian.
He's Egyptian. Yeah.
Wow. So I've written about this actually many years ago, but there's an incredible sort of comedy scene sort of throughout South Asia and the Levant, Middle East world and Northern Africa. Also, and then there's like one of the top TV shows for years. It might still be going. I'm not even sure, in Pakistan, which is a huge thing, right? To be a top TV show in Pakistan, a giant country. It's one of the top 10 countries in the world. Was a show hosted by a drag queen. For like, this guy's like a huge star. He's like RuPaul in Pakistan, but like 10 times bigger. He's a giant superstar in Pakistan, and he's a complete homosexual, flagrant, straight up. He's got like a husband and whatever, and he's a drag queen. And I'm trying to remember his name, but people can look it up. And so I wrote about this before, but yeah, and I wonder, because other parts of the world don't have much comedy going on. I was thinking about like East Asia, it's hard to find comedy in like China, Japan. I mean, maybe there's some. Oh, I think there's some Koreans are my favorites.
There's slapstick comedy in China happening. Like,
there is?
Yeah.
They're slapping each other in China?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos of
Three Stooges.
Like Three Stooges, like benign factory accident comedy, or like, yeah.
Okay, we can go back to talking about Israel.
Okay.
We just needed a recess.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about it with humor last week, just because I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So tell me, you never answered my question, did you? Like, why were you dreading it?
Well, you've gotten to it in that I don't want to be like on the record.
Oh yeah, that's right.
About this contentious issue.
Fear of social ostracism.
When I honestly have nothing but contempt for everybody involved.
You were afraid of losing your friends.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like that article just said we all did. Everyone who has said the things that we have said has a lot. We have no more Jewish friends. I was gonna check. I was gonna
Probably has no Jewish friends also, because like
I was gonna do a group text to everybody, you know, to my son, my mother, you know, my ex-wife, you know, all my friends who are Jewish, and ask if they're still gonna talk to me. No, they're all pro-Palestine, most of them. But yeah,
I mean, there's the oldest Jewish joke in the book, right? Two rabbis walk into a bar, have an argument, and there's three opinions amongst them.
yes,
like Jews aren't a monolith.
They're a fractious people.
Yeah,
my people. No, of course, and that's why I love them. I mean, they're fucking entertaining. You know, I spent 20 years of my life being in Jewish families as an in-law, and it was a blast watching them do their thing. The shticks, the arguing, the emotionality, all of it. But boy, the thing that pisses me off, and I find this just offensive, straight up offensive, is when people conflate, and it's also just straight up stupid, but it's obvious propaganda is the conflation of Jew with Israeli.
Oh, did you see Ben Shapiro's title for his episode today? How to bomb your own hospital and blame the Jews.
Yeah, Ben's been doing this a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of otherwise very smart people who I otherwise respect on the right, like Ben Shapiro, who I think is smart as shit, and who I think is right about most things, actually, probably more than half of all issues he and I agree on. Yeah, he does this all the time. I see him constantly say, and now they're going after the Jews, and now they think it's the Jews, and now it's that. What do you want to behead Jews, huh? He does actually sound a lot like old vaudeville actors, you know, in the state of Raleigh. Hi, pitch, come. Hey, buddy, what are you talking about? But it's just he gets faster and faster the more he gets into it, you know, the more he talks about Hamas. He's just like, oh Christ, it's just oh. So yeah, very smart people like that. Bethany Mandel is another one. I think she writes for somebody. Her husband Seth Mandel. They're both very like respectable conservative mainstream thinkers who are like, you know, decent. I have basic respect for them as like, you know, honest intellectuals and stuff. But yeah, they're just constantly going on about how this is traumatic for Jews. How October 7th was traumatic for Jews. I was like, you really are trying to say, like, I learned not only my anti-Zionism, but my anti-Semitism from Jews. Like every good Jew joke I've ever heard was from, I think I've said this, I've heard from Jews. Oh God, if you spend time with Jews, they're constantly making anti-Semitic jokes. That's what they do. They make fun of themselves all the time. And anti-Zionism, which is the more important thing here, good God, Max Blumenthal, Norman Finkelstein, Gabor Mate, Aaron Mate, these are all 100% purebred Jews who are mortal enemies of the state of Israel. I mean, these are the leading, these are like the leading intellectuals who are anti-Zionists. It is so offensive to say that. I just like, in fact, I need to tweet about that. I need to intervene on that one. It's just amazing. And it's just so racist. It's like, what? Oh, all Jews think alike, huh? Well, no. I mean, it's just so flatly wrong.
Well, it also inspires anti-Semitism. If you equate the actions of the Israeli government to the Jewish people, then people are going to hate Jews. Because,
exactly. Yo, you're conflating these two. Right. Thanks a lot. I don't want to be tied to that fucking thing.
It's almost like that's what he wants.
Exactly.
There's more anti-Semitism. Yeah.
Well, that's what Zionism is. It's an evangelical movement. Founded in 1896 by Theodore Herzl. He's founded the Zionist organization, which didn't get any traction for 20 years. They were calling for the world's Jews to come settle in Palestine and make it the land of Israel. And it was an evangelical thing, and Jews aren't evangelical, so it's weird. And a lot of Orthodox Jews are anti-Zionists too, by the way. You know about this? There are multiple Orthodox sects within Judaism that are totally anti-Zionist.
like the idea that a political state is the actual fulfillment of prophecy is very offensive to a lot of
where is that in the
practicing
Torah?
Jews. Yeah.
Yeah, like Jesus, like yeah. But so much, you know, the evangelical notion is a bit offensive too. I mean, but so everyone listening, I beg of you, every time you hear someone do that kind of thing, conflate Jew with Israeli, please say something or hit somebody. It's disgusting. I mean, it'd be one thing if it were like a minority, like if it were a minority that was like truly, you know, had almost a consensus on something. You can find that in certain places, like some little ethnic group, you know, votes 98% in certain directions. Okay, I wouldn't be mad at you, you know, if you conflated one
like
thing,
Japan.
you know? Yeah, well, okay, I don't know. I mean, certain parts of Japan, sure,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, certain like ethnic groups in Japan. If you said like the so and so ethnic group, you know, they are this political thing too, sure. But the Jews are so fractious, as I said, it's all fucking arguing. If you've ever spent any time with a Jewish family, you know all they do is argue with each other. And get their feelings hurt by each other. And then it's also every Jewish family. This is the funny thing. And every Jewish family, tell me if I'm wrong, people, if you know if you have experience, will have one successful capitalist and one communist in it. Every Jewish family. They'll have a communist intellectual and a badass businessman in the same family. Like, well, this is the thing.
I've seen many that are the same person.
And then there's that too.
Yeah.
Like a certain George Soro for the bots. Just not.
I've known some communist academics who like have amazing branding and like sell t-shirts and sell merchandise with the branding of what they've done but they're communists, but they're like,
oh yeah,
amazing businessmen.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's my whole, those are the people I grew up with, right? My parents and all their friends. My mother married a Jew too, so my stepfather is Jewish as well. But yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of the comrades were Jewish, and now are business people making money. Some of them stayed in the damn game, though. I can't believe it. Some of them like stayed as union organizers and still are doing it. They're in their 70s and 80s, and they're still doing it. Whoa, with like not much progress in the communist front. You know, they're not really pushing the ball forward too well in the communist. I mean, some people think they do. Hotep Jesus is convinced that everybody's a communist, and so is Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin and Hotep Jesus agree on this, that the elite is actually truly communist, and dominated by Jews. But anyway, back to Israel. We've been having too much fun. Let's feel really bad for a moment. But I wanted to say that about conflating Jews with Israelis is just so gross.
Somebody put in the chat at Rumble that Jews running Israel is a conspiracy theory. It's really run by the State Department. That's a Curtis Yarvin.
Oh, that's an awesome point, because there's an amazing story. In fact, I think this was even reported about Blinken. Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, made this visit to Israel a few days ago. And there was a story about how, like, he was in I guess the executive offices, the executive branch, like Netanyahu's office. Right. He was in Netanyahu's office, and like the whatever committee which had to decide something, I forget what it was. I think it was about the ceasefire, the conditions for the ceasefire, something like that, or whether they would do a ceasefire or whatever. But like, I forget the story, but basically they were just were waiting on Blinken. Like Blinken was just telling them what to do. It was incredible how he was just dictating the meeting. And they don't quite dictate, and there's been some the way to put it is Israel has disobeyed at times. And there's a hilarious moment in 1975 when Henry Kissinger gets up before this Jewish group. I might have said this before on this show, but anyway, like, and tells these Jewish big shots, like the George Soroses of the time, and says, "Yo," he doesn't say "yo," he says, "Listen, yo." He says, "Listen." Henry Kissinger, by the way, like fled, you know, the Holocaust. So this dude has the cred. And he says, listen, no, you think Israel runs our foreign policy? Like, you think Israel gets to determine what America does? No. He's like, listen, our interests are to like take that fucking oil. He does. He says, listen, the Arabs are sitting on all that oil. That's our main interest. Israel, no, you're just like a tool for us. He tells them to their faces. These like big shot Jewish financiers, the people who are supposedly running the world, by the way. If you believe in a Jewish cabal that runs the world, go read Henry Kissinger's speech to the Klutznik group, 1975. He tells the biggest Jews in the world to go fuck themselves. He, as an American, as the leader of the United States government, runs the fucking world. The U.S., he says, decides what Israel does. So sit down and stop trying to kill Arabs every chance you get is usually what he does, or the Americans have done. The Israelis get into a bloodlust, which they're in a big one right now, where they always are going for a ratio. They're always going for like 5 to 10 to 20 to 1. And occasionally some of the conflicts, and by the way, the conflicts are like every 2 to 3 years now on average, in which hundreds or thousands of people die. Imagine living in that place, like voluntarily, not like in Gaza where they have no choice and can't leave. I mean, in Israel, imagine. Oh, yeah. So they're always going for a ratio of like 5 to 10 to 20 to 1, which that's what they're going for now. So they had 1,400 dead on their side, they say, by the way. I'd love to actually see some of it. I'm not convinced at all. But anyway, they're going to go for what's 5 to 10 times that. I don't know. What are we getting into now? 10, 15,000, 20. Oh. In a really small population, out of 2 million people, that's holy smokes, man. Yeah, the video, I was going to say, I think it's important. And for some reason, I don't see them on Twitter much. I don't know why this is. I don't know if they're getting censored or what, but there's a lot of like hardcore pro-Palestinian people on Twitter. For some reason, they don't post these videos. There are amazing accounts on Instagram. I subscribe to like 10 or 20 of them that have unbelievable videos, like the one I just described of that entire city block on top of these civilians. Holy fuck. And it's just one video after another, after another, after another, after another, after I can't do it. I cannot continue. Lots of children, lots of dead children. Bunch today. You see the photo of what was it? 7, 5, 6 dead babies, like infants, swaddled, clear as day. There's no way they're faking this. Dead in the hospital, lined up. I think it was in one building that was bombed. I have still not seen a single photo of a dead Israeli baby. I have still not seen a shred of evidence that any woman was even sexually assaulted in any way. I have seen not a shred of evidence, because there ain't none, because they've already walked it back officially, of any beheaded babies. And yet still to this day, can you listen to a pro-Israeli person not begin their speech with the beheaded babies and the raped women at the music festival? In every sentence, they have to tell us that this happened. I'm like, wait, what I have seen for sure, 99% sure, has been, tell me what, I'm curious what you've seen in terms of clear, direct video evidence of the deliberate killing of civilians. I've seen 3 or 4 civilians get shot by Hamas in videos, like very clearly. And then I saw just today them kind of like shooting indiscriminately into this field, which allegedly was where the Nova Music Festival people were running away. They were definitely shooting at, I'm sure, civilians. So I don't doubt that. Indiscriminate. So but that's, of course, war crime, killing civilians deliberately, fuck those people forever and half. And I hope this never happens, but it does. Anyway, but compared to what I've seen on the Palestinian side, it's a drop in the ocean. And that's just in this conflict. In the last one, it was something like, I don't know, 100 Israelis dead to like 5,000 Palestinians. It's always something like that. So so we know that Hamas killed civilians. Like we all agree on that. Like even the most hardcore pro-Palestine people agree on that. I've seen evidence of them killing like 5 to 10, something like that. Also, I saw them shooting into those porta potties. I don't know if you saw that. That was clearly an attempt to kill. It could have been like 20 people in there. I don't know if they killed probably didn't kill anybody, but they could have killed. They were trying to kill anybody who was in there. I mean, yeah, absolute war crime, no doubt. But that's again, basically you'll see that many dead people in one video on Instagram from Gaza. Easy. Just pretty much any video you watch has like at least 5 or 6 dead people in it. And often they're little people, little dead people. It's just, it's almost pornographic.
No, it's snuff. Yeah, I'm like really, sick of it.
But this time it's really real. You know, it's like, fuck. The video age is not fun in this case, you know. I mean, on the one hand, thank God every Palestinian has a smartphone, but on the other hand, I wish they didn't, you know, in some ways. Like it's just of course I want them to, and of course I want them to do exactly what they're doing, but like it's so I can't even do it. I have a pretty high tolerance for that stuff. The only thing I couldn't ever really watch was the ISIS beheading videos.
The tragedy doesn't hit me so bad. Like seeing destruction doesn't bother me so much, and dead bodies necessarily. But seeing genuine terror on people's faces bothers me, and seeing genuine sadism on people's faces.
Wow. Empathy.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
You should work on that. Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. That's interesting. I'm just trying right now to think about what moves me particularly. I'm not even sure.
It's like this happened to me once. As a little kid, I got a cut on my face, and I fell down, got a big cut on my face. And then I didn't cry or anything until I looked in the mirror and saw I was cut up. You know, like seeing the actual destruction and devastation bother me until I see another human being react to it and start, like, once they start crying, I start crying, you know?
So you know what this is? You want to know the postmodern professorial breakdown of that?
What?
That is affect versus effect. What moves you, right, is the affect of an effect. An affect that is a reaction to an effect is what moves you. You seeing people react to a thing that happens, which is an effect, that's their affect. Seeing an affect moves you. Anyway, who gives a fuck? All right. Yeah. I know we do have to get back to the heart. I want to do some nuts and bolts stuff because a lot of people are not. This is a huge news story. Well, it's the biggest news story right now, and I noticed that. I mean, very few people are actually doing the research on this, but I have tried to stay up pretty well on it. Although there's amazing stuff going on in terms of open source intel. There's some people doing awesome things in terms of determining who dropped that bomb on that hospital. So first thing people are going to say is they didn't drop it on the hospital. The hospital's still standing. It's like, yeah, dude, we know. We've already gone over this a long time ago. Yeah, it landed in or right over, and that's an important thing, right over the parking lot of the hospital. So like, I mean, somebody was trying to bomb the hospital is all that matters. Was Israel trying to attack the hospital is what matters. We also know in terms of casualties, and this is a little bit odd. I agree. I grant this. Casualty numbers as of today, I have heard from pretty respectable sources, both close to 500 still and scores, at least scores. And I strongly recommend everyone go watch. I put it on Twitter. It's a 5-minute video done by Channel 4, which is UK super establishment. It's like the other BBC in the UK. Very legacy outlet media establishment. These are like not lefties at all or crazy people. They did a really amazing breakdown of this, and they don't come to a conclusion, but they sure as hell punch big holes in the Israeli story. And after this, you're going to lean pretty heavily, I think, toward the idea that it was the IDF did it. I mean, just every video I've seen of the blast itself, like Hamas doesn't possess things that sound like that or that make booms that big, literally, because you know what they make their rockets out of, right?
Yeah, they're like bottle rockets. They're like,
no, water pipes. They dig up the water pipes underground. They've made videos of this. They've shown how they do this. They dig up water pipes and make their rockets out of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to make anything close to that kind of explosion. Plus, as I said on Twitter, and a lot of people like misunderstood this and thought I meant something else. If Hamas had bombs that could level a building, which was originally what we were all thought had happened, or killed scores of people, this would be a really different war, and Israel might not be standing.
Yeah.
So they don't, is the point. They have fucking water pipes to work with, you know.
And there's a giant crater in that parking lot. Like it's nothing to shake a stick at. It's a big impact. It's a big crater, and a bunch of cars are leveled, and yeah.
So it looks like at least scores. So what is that? You know, at least 40 people. You know, Hamas has never killed anywhere close to that many people with a rocket. I don't think they've ever killed more than one person with a rocket, maybe 2 or 3. They're little tiny things. I've seen it. There's a good video that I think Jackson Hinkle posted of a Hamas rocket like hitting an intersection of roads, and you can see it very clearly. It's like if it was a direct hit on you, it would kill you for sure. If you were standing 5 feet from it, probably not. I mean, it's pretty small, like 10-foot blast area, something like that. They're really dinky. As I said, they're made out of water pipes. So it's just preposterous. And Israel is so dishonest. I saw the IDF spokesperson's whole spiel. They released this video where he stands in front of this video screen and he goes through this whole theory that they have about how it was actually a Hamas rocket that misfired. And anyway, go watch Channel 4. And there's new video. Who was this today? Al Jazeera just posted another analysis of it that I haven't really looked at this, so I can't swear to it. But apparently, like they're showing clearly the Israeli jet or an Israeli jet ascending immediately, I think 5 seconds before the bomb hits. So that makes sense, right? Because you drop the bomb, then ascend to get away. But they say they can show it on the video. But anyway, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Hamas doesn't have weapons like that. Even if it was just the parking lot assholes, all these people on Twitter yell at me about how, like, you fucking idiot, you don't even know the hospital wasn't. I love you to pieces, Jeff Schellenberger, but even Jeff Schellenberger yelled at me about that. I'm like, no, I know, dude. It was still like a major munitions that was aimed at the hospital and still killed at least 40 people. So, and possibly 500 people. You know, there was a news conference, one of the more grisly things again. So, more grisly, the whole fucking thing is like that. Is like Saw, that horror movie. It's just nothing it's nothing but that. It's just nothing but chewed up bodies, but chopped up bodies. There was that news conference at one of the hospitals where the doctors are like talking and they have the table and it's a makeshift morgue. And it looks like at least 40 or so bodies. I'm like, okay. I mean, the fuck, when the fuck does that happen in America or Europe or anywhere where they're giving news conferences in a hospital standing among like 40 bodies?
But the IDF said that Hamas was intending to fire a rocket at Israel. It failed because they're stupid, and it fell on their own hospital. And so anybody who repeated that the hospital was bombed, like the New York Times and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and CNN, they're all pro-Palestinian supporters, pro-Hamas supporters who will gobble up any propaganda and spew it out on the side of Hamas.
Michael Tracy said something funny as hell today, and he's right. Like he was listening to like a Hamas news conference, and he said, they're always the Hamas leaders. Whenever they talk, they're a bunch of blathering idiots. Like, what the hell is going on here? It's true. They're just a gang that sort of filled a void. You know, they seized this opportunity and took over in the way a gang would, and they have their own agenda. You know, we don't even know, but the estimates are something like 30,000 people are actual like militants in Hamas, something like that, like the Hamas army, something in that range. You know, that's teeny tiny, could be wiped out pretty quickly. But the constant, not just charge, the whole rationale for the bombing of Gaza is that every single civilian in Gaza, Michael, is being used as a human shield, which means that we can kill any one of them.
Every drop of blood is on Hamas's hands. As
we can kill any one of them, and the Hamas will be at fault.
Yeah,
which is exactly how they've acted. Now, this is a hilarious joke because Gaza is the most densely populated place on Earth, or at least one of the most. And it's either there's a strip on the outside of Gaza that's all deserts, uninhabitable. There's nothing, no one can live there. The populated part's like maybe a half of it along the coast. It's incredibly densely populated. So if you're going to fire a missile from Gaza, meaning if you're Hamas and you're going to fire a missile, it's basically impossible to fire it from anywhere that's not a residential district, which is exactly what Amnesty International has said. They said they found zero evidence of Hamas intentionally using civilian infrastructure like hospitals or schools to fire rockets from. Amnesty International said this. They did find evidence of Hamas firing missiles or rockets from residential areas. But I'm like, that's all of Gaza. I think there is nothing. I don't think there's any part of Gaza that doesn't have thousands of houses in it. So, which none of which is to excuse fucking any, of course, who cares? The point is to end this. How do we end this? One side has to give up. If the Palestinians submit to the ethnic cleansing and all move out, of course, they have to have somewhere to go. If they find somewhere to go and they actually leave Gaza and Israel seizes it entirely, okay, that's one way to end at least the Gaza conflict. Then you still have to deal with the West Bank, and then you have to deal with all the Arab countries, etc. But that's a big, like at least half of the problem would be gone.
Well,
and Hezbollah too.
Mm-hmm.
What?
How do you think the Arab nations are gonna feel? How do you think Iran? How do you think Saudi Arabia?
They don't want those stinky, dirty Palestinians. No, that's how they think about them.
Oh, well,
they think about them the way, you know what they do? They think about Palestinians the way that American liberals think about blacks, right? They have a lot of sympathy and pity for them, and they're very happy to send a check to help them, but they don't want to be living near them. Palestinians are the niggers of the Middle East, for sure. I mean, culturally, that's a thing. They're the lowest class in the Middle East. So yeah, I mean, that's one of many reasons. And also, these Arab cities, last I checked, they're pretty densely populated themselves. So adding 2 million people, not something they're not interested in. Also, mostly low skill, poor people. Yeah, it's not who you want. So those poor people, they were born in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that is just a thing. They happen to be born in a place that happened to be the target of this little sect of Jews that wanted to establish an ethno-state. And this place where these poor people happen to be born, it's just an incredibly bad roll of the dice. And it is just the most disgusting, grisly, horrific 75-year war. And you could even say it's a 100-year war, because and they started killing each other in the 1920s, the Zionists and the Palestinians, maybe even before that, but at least in the at least 100 years ago. So at least, that's that long. And we're still into this. We still want to continue pushing this whole idea of having a Jewish ethno-state among the Arabs. Okay.
All right. I really want to play this Netanyahu clip to frame the whole conflict.
We need to talk about him too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think it's just central to everything. Yeah, I'll just play this.
Hamas are the new Nazis. They're the new ISIS. And we have to fight them together, just as the world, the civilized world, united to fight the Nazis and united to fight Hamas. It must together now stand with Israel as we fight and defeat Hamas. This is not merely our battle. It's the battle of the entire civilized world. It's the battle of Israel. It's the battle of the moderate Arab countries. It's the battle of Western civilization, the battle of the free world, the battle for the future. We have here two forces. One is an axis of evil led by Iran through Hezbollah, Hamas, and others that want to bring back the Middle East to the Middle Ages, to an age of bondage and war and slavery and annihilation. And the other force is the forces of progress and humanity that want to push the Middle East into a world of peace and prosperity. 80 years ago, Prime Minister, the civilized world stood with you in your darkest hour. This is our darkest hour. It's the world's darkest hour. We need to stand together, and we want to win. And this is why I value your support, and the fact that you're here. We must win together. That means that this is a long war, and we'll need your continuous support. There'll be ups and downs. There'll be difficulties. The people here are united. They're prepared to take the necessary action. I've never seen the people of Israel as united, more united than they are now. But we need that unity across the board and continuous support as we prosecute and win this just war against the modern barbarians, the worst monsters on the planet. Thank you, Rishi, for coming here.
So I would hope that people would at least pause at Netanyahu's rhetoric, which is utterly apocalyptic. I mean, even American politicians don't talk like that about war. We're going to be descended back into the dark ages if we don't win this war and kill all these people. Like, Americans don't say that. And then there's this really weird thing he does where the Palestinians are now two people. They are Nazis and they are barbarians, which is a lot, because the Nazis were certainly not barbarians. They were a lot of things, but they were very, very modern. And you keep talking about like the Israelis are the modern side. Well, the Nazis were the epitome of modernity, dude, for one thing. But to be a barbarian and a Nazi at the same time, which is it? The Nazis were all about the rule of law, man. They were all about rules and order, big time. Social engineering, they were very progressive, super modern. They weren't barbarians. What are the Palestinians? I don't get it.
But
yeah,
I don't think the Zionist project would be satisfied with all of that territory being Israel. I think they have a larger project of bringing democracy to the entire Middle East.
Wow.
Well, they certainly explicitly put it in those terms, right?
Bringing democracy, meaning bringing America.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's their neocon cousins. That's what their job is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why are all the neocons Jewish, or why are they all? Is there a coincidence there? No, they're ardent Zionists. It's at the center of their project. Their project is not to, by the way, they don't work for Israel. They love Israel, but they work for the United States. These are American patriots. I'm talking about the neocons, like William Crystal and all those cats. What they want is exactly what you just said. They want to surround Israel with America. So they want to convert all those Muslim and Arab nations surrounding Israel to our culture, meaning we want military bases there and we want to control their governments and all the rest of it. And, we want them to adopt our cultural mores and norms. And they work hand in glove with the Zionists in Israel. Exactly. Same project. And they have been trying to bomb Iran nonstop for decades. Oh, this is something we got to talk about this too. The splits. I mean, it's really interesting on the one hand. Some of it's a little bit sad because I think I might have lost a few friends actually, although there's some people I just mostly lost respect for. Some people I did have, I was talking about them before. There are multiple, actually quite a few people who I have had a lot of respect for as political commentators and analysts and journalists who have said stuff about this conflict that's really ignorant. It's just ignorant. I mean, I understand it's a complicated issue, but I do feel like most people who have talked about this really know zip about what happened in Israel between 1948 and 2 years ago. Really. And a lot of people don't even know what happened before October 7th. So to them, it's like, what? These people did this? What? There must be savages because they were completely unprovoked. 75 years of provocation, trust me. But yeah, the splits that I'm seeing on the left and the right, have you noticed this? Quite pronounced. Like there's Ben Shapiro and what's his name? Tucker Carlson.
Tucker going at each other, yeah.
Hate each other now over this. Because Tucker, by the way, Tucker speaks for me. Tucker, that is my position. He doesn't take a moral position on it at all. He just says, I don't want to support it. I don't want to support any part of it. And I'm like, yes, that's my only position on it. But yeah, so Shapiro is like going ballistic on Tucker, screaming into the microphone. Flecks of spittle flying the whole 9 yards. He is furious. And then trying to think, there's my boy Nick Fuentes. I talked about him last week. He's calling people out. He did a whole video on this about how much of the right wing is actually bought off by Israel. There are quite a few. MAGA seems to be unanimous in this. They're pro-Israel, which is wild to me. I need someone to explain that, other than that it's about brown people killing white people. I really think that strikes a very deep MAGA nerve. Remember, much of the MAGA movement comes out of sort of the Breitbart world of reporting on black crime, which, I think was a good thing because we did need to know what was actually going on. But a lot of it comes out of that kind of law and order revulsion of, about black and brown criminals running amok, which ain't completely wrong. But anyway,
a lot of the MAGA side believed that Obama was too weak on his foreign policy.
Oh, because they hate Iran.
Yeah. And also, there were rules of engagement that kept the military's hands tied when engaging with ISIS that kind of allowed ISIS to continue. And Trump kind of took some of those rules off and allowed there to be a full-scale war on ISIS.
And won.
Then
he won the war, destroyed ISIS totally. Mm-hmm. Anyone noticed? Where's ISIS been for the last 7 years? They're poof, gone. He killed every single one of them. It's incredible.
And so Netanyahu is also drawing the comparison of, he's repeating the refrain that Hamas is ISIS. And so we have to eradicate them like we eradicated ISIS. A lot of conservatives just come out of that war on terror impulse, and they kept it, and they liked having a strong man. Trump was very strong with the military and police and a law and order guy, and they see the Middle East like that.
No, but MAGA has been so great on foreign policy, right? They've been so anti-interventionist on most things. Ukraine, they've been fantastic on Ukraine. But on this, it's not totally surprising because I know Trump, right? Trump's been ultra pro-Israel his entire life. But I would think there'd be some division within MAGA. I haven't seen anybody within the Trump movement who's even skeptical about Israel. It's disappointing. Supporting the United States sending foreign aid to Israel is what they want. I'm like, wait, what? What about America first? Are you kidding?
Mm-hmm.
And especially Israel of all countries, really? We've given them, I think it's $150 billion now since 1948, since 1968. $3 billion a year now is what the annual budget is for our aid to Israel. And that's MAGA wants that. What happened to America first, guys?
Yeah. Well, Trump was also the most pro-Israel president ever. He bragged about that. He moved the capital to Jerusalem. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Kushner, I said last week, Kushner, Netanyahu literally slept in his bed when he was a kid. Not to do anything untoward, apparently, but Jared slept in the living room to let Bibi sleep in his bedroom once because they're that tight. That's a huge explanation, by the way, for Trump's behavior on Israel is Jared Kushner. In fact, I think, don't most people think that's the entire reason?
Yeah. And he did
this crazy shit like Jerusalem and stuff.
Yeah, and he has a soft spot for his daughter, and yeah,
he has more than a soft spot. Have you heard the way he's talked about it?
Yes.
It actually kind of I raised my eyebrows at that. I was like, whoa, dude, easy now.
Yeah.
That is really
I think it's just because he loves himself so much that he sees himself in female form, and it's like it.
Well, he's proud of it. He's proud that that is right. It's his narcissism, actually. He's proud that he created a woman of value. And of course, a woman who's hot is of value. No, I think that's how he thinks, right? He is so. It's truly. I mean, that one criticism of Trump is completely right. The guy is awesomely self-aggrandizing. It's just he is like, it's a form of narcissism that is just, it's kind of spectacular. I just find it funny. I mean, you know, the left gets offended by it, but yeah, using his daughter is like, look what a hot piece of ass I created.
Yeah, exactly.
Like high-fiving Howard Stern about his daughter being, I almost said his girlfriend, his daughter being hot. Wow, Don. All right, back to Israel.
The divide on the left.
Oh yeah. So there's a divide on the right, and then you have the Bronze Age pervert versus Nick Fuentes thing. I don't know. It's just wild. Like it's all up and down the right. I mean, there's not a lot of right wingers who are. Well, like then there's like Jake Shields, who's this knucklehead UFC fighter, who's like a big prominent kind of right winger on Twitter, even though
he's been great on Israel.
He's dumb as a brick, but on this he chose the Palestine side, whatever. It's like, whoa, okay, Jake, and he's running with it. He has said some stuff that's just like gross and infuriating, but yeah, on this he's right. So there is a definite split. And then Tucker versus, I mean, that's the highest levels of the right wing these days. There is a civil war, and then the left. But this is nothing new. The split on the right is sort of new because the right used to be unanimous on Israel, and now you finally have this dissident right happening that is finding a different path even on Israel. But the left has always been split because, as I said, I think last week, you know, so much of the left is Jewish. There's so many Jewish leftists. There's a huge Venn diagram there, Jews and leftists. And of course, Jews tend to be, you know, more, not always, of course, as I said earlier, but tend to be sympathetic to Israel. So they often, there's a conflict. And I have known dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of Jewish leftists or liberals who are like straight up like BLM, transgender, yada, yada, socialist, this and that, except in Israel, in which case they want the United States to send a lot of bombs to kill Arabs with, you know, I mean, and they really talk like that pretty much, you know, they get like genocidal in their rhetoric. And so you see that. And now you will see that the more liberal or sort of center lefty you are, the more pro-Israel you're going to be. And the more like left wing, like outside of Congress, Marxist, socialist, you know, some kind of party, those people tend to be more pro-Palestinian. But Bernie Sanders, you know, he's a lefty, super ultra pro-Israel. He could give a fuck about Palestinians. And, you know, the Squad is this is the first time we actually have a faction in Congress that is clearly pro-Palestinian and clearly, I mean, they're probably anti-Zionist in their hearts. I think that's true. I think Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, I'm sure in their hearts, they want to they're officially for a two-state solution. But everyone knows that's basically impossible now. But I think they're basically anti-Zionist. So they're the first anti-Zionists ever to be in Congress, which is interesting. Another thing I was going to say connected to that, we now have for the very first time, as I said, people in Congress who are anti-Zionists pretty clearly. And the media has actually for the first time been much more sympathetic to the Palestinian side. Even, I would even to me, to an excess, like, the damn New York Times, like, according to me, like ran a little too heavy with the hospital bombing story and ran a huge headline saying Israel did it according to Palestinians. I'm like, wait, hold on, wait on that. Which is bizarre for the New York Times because the New York Times, owned by Jews or Zionists, have historically been huge supporters of Israel. They will definitely talk about dead Palestinian babies now and then to assuage their guilt because they're all liberals too. And that's how the liberal deals with this. They do like every 10th story, they'll have something about a dead Palestinian baby that's really sad. And it's unfortunate that Hamas used him as a human shield. Moving on. But so you see this now. And then, like, for instance, a big split is this amazing group of Jews, a lot of rabbis. They have a name called, I think it's Jewish Voice for Peace. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like that. They are the Jewish pro-Palestinian radical political group. Anyway, they went into the U.S. Capitol.
The ceasefire protest today, yeah.
Did an insurrection and occupied the Capitol Rotunda, I think, calling for a ceasefire, which is like, how could we not be? Please, someone explain to me how we could be opposed to a ceasefire. There was a resolution in the United Nations Security Council for a ceasefire offered by Russia, which anybody who cares about human beings, I'm sorry, would absolutely support. I mean, it called for things like, you know, a humanitarian corridor and a ceasefire and, like, you know, rules about not targeting civilians, like stuff that, and the US vetoed it. We would have a ceasefire if not for the United States. They would not be killing children right now if not for the United States. They just veto, and that's what they've always done with Israel, almost always. Mm-hmm. Holy shit, it's worse than Ukraine, because it's, well, I mean, well, it's a lot longer. It's been going on for 75. The United States, it's been 53 years. Mm-hmm. It's 55 years since 1968. That's when we started funding Israel. So are you going to lose all your Jewish friends?
I don't think they watch this.
It's not what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say, yeah, it's going to be hard, but we're going to talk through it. We're going to have a meeting later. You know, we have a
heart-to-heart
at our regular weekly meeting down at the hall. You know,
yeah.
We'll work it out. Me and my boys.
Yeah.
We're drinking beers like the old days when people actually used to get together. I don't know if you know about that. You ever heard about that? People getting together?
People in person?
No, like, honest. No, seriously. Like, I've seen it. I mean, I used to do it like back in the day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I do. I want. Is everyone more socially isolated than before COVID? I mean, I am, and I wonder if that's true for everyone. Does it seem like it to you? Like, generally, like, people are just more isolated and less social than before 2020?
Yes. I think there's
21.
Yes, I think people are more socially isolated.
20. Yeah.
But I think there's like a reclaiming of public space happening. That's like people are finding it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm very sad about it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe I just made some more friends recently, but
but they just dumped you because they're Jewish.
Yeah.
So we cleaned your plate. I'm glad your Jewish friends don't watch this. I'm sure that all your Palestinian friends do, though.
Yeah. Well, this is what I want to talk about is the hard left supporting Palestine.
All right. Yes.
And a lot of like Batya Ungar Sargon and a lot of people have been like condemning the left as though supporting Palestine is endemic of wokeness. There's an article in the New York Post. I was a DEI director, and DEI drives campus anti-Semitism. So the logic of wokeness frames everybody as oppressors and oppressed, and
anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
that's another awesome trick they play.
Mm-hmm.
If you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Like, you know, like Max Blumenthal and Norman Finkelstein do. Yeah, they're anti-Semitic. Yeah.
But again, like I see the pro-Israel people, whatever their political background is, as woke. I see them as identity politics driven ethno-nationalists who use a left-wing grievance politic of the Holocaust happened, therefore anything we do is excused and we are perpetual victims.
Yeah, that's a nice try. Mapping wokeness onto this. Mm-hmm. Nice try. There's been an anti-Zionist movement since before Israel was founded. And as I said,
it's international. It's an international thing. The more people you import, the more anti-Zionists you're going to have.
It's international. It's led by Jews. As I said, most of the major anti-Zionist intellectuals I can think of are totally Jewish. It's so offensive to conflate these things. In fact, Max Blumenthal makes a very compelling point, which is sort of like, it's kind of piggybacking off of my argument about Israel being self-destructive for Jews. It just serves, it just does terrible things to Jewish people. I mean, it militarizes them. Everyone has to serve in the military. I mean, everyone, women, is that the society you want? You want all the girls, all the 18-year-old girls to be in the military? Yes, I know female IDF soldiers are really hot. I agree 100%. There's something about Israeli women. I don't understand it. It's one of these like life's mysteries. They do have that. I absolutely give you that. Israeli women are fairly amazing, but I still would rather they not be in uniform with rifles on their backs, and especially not in somewhere like Gaza. Holy fuck. If and when they go in. Now, this is a question. Oh, you want to get back to the left. Yeah. So the anti-Zionist movement, the criticism of Israel, that goes back since at least 1948. It's been a movement, a constant movement, mostly on the left. Yes. Since then, it's been an interesting eclectic group, actually. You know, you have like the odd celebrity here and there, like Vanessa Redgrave, the great actress. She was a huge pro. I think she even funded the PLO at one point. She was a huge pro-Palestine. Jeremy Corbyn, right, who was the leader of the Labor Party and almost became the prime minister. You know, major anti-Zionist. You have all sorts of people, different types of people on the left. And you have, as I said, Jews, a lot of Jewish leftists, some Jewish liberals are anti-Zionists. Then yes, and this is what people like Baccia are seeing that they're right about. You do have sort of what I would call the third worldist tendency, kind of the remnants of the post-colonial movements of the mid 20th century when all the African and Asian nations threw off the colonial oppressors, right? Established independent nations.
And I hear them likening their struggle to all anti-colonial struggles.
Yeah.
Especially like the Native Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So that set of movements in Africa, especially in Asia, created a politics, like a particular politics with its own culture. And that's Hamas does come out of that, because Hamas comes out of the 1980s when that third worldist culture was really huge. And they are a part of it. They are a part of the anti-colonial struggle. They're also from that part of the world. So it's a very natural joining together, which is why it is so alien to people in America, and why people like who, you know, write for places like the Daily Beast or you know, Newsweek or whatever, find it so not just repellent, but bizarre, I think, and talk about it in terms like Netanyahu does, of it being like pre-modern. It's from another world, right? They're from another paradigm entirely. This is not even a civilization at all. These are barbarians or Nazis or people from outside of our universe. And so, yes, a lot of that does come from the third worldist movement. But that's a movement of the 1960s and 70s. And even that movement has been pretty fractious. There's been like a Marxist element. There's been like a nationalist movement within it. There's been, you know, even some fascism within it.
I think it's very, I mean, I just see it on college campuses all the time, though. I see it as like the dominant narrative on this issue at college campuses. And it like dominates conversation all the time. And somebody mentioned in the chat, there was a Hamas leader interviewed by Vice that likened the struggle of Palestinians to George Floyd.
Yeah, right.
It's
well, that's Hamas knowing where its bread is buttered.
Mm-hmm.
They get what little money they get, other than from Iran, they get from left wingers.
Mm-hmm.
They get from like Western, like hardcore revolutionaries. There's a few people, like the kinds of people who would fund the IRA during the Irish Troubles. You know, there's little fringy groups like that, believe it or not, who actually raise money and send guns to. In fact, I just realized I sort of knew someone whose family was in part of that. But anyway, yeah. But yes. And And that's, so they know that the left wing is their their great patrons. And so I think that's part of the reason they talk that language. And then I think over the generations, they've learned it. They've sort of internalized it. And this is like Palestinian political people, by the way. It's not all Palestinians. I think it's the political people who live in the West Bank and Gaza do try to identify with left-wing movements and culture in the West, because that's all they've got. I think that's all they've got. The entire Western media is against them. The governments are against them. The militaries are against them. The culture is against them. We see them as crazy barbarian savages, even though we've seen no evidence. And I want to come back to this about the alleged atrocities and about the evidence I've seen. And I'd love to, have you seen more than I've seen of them killing civilians?
I've seen like a video of them driving through the border and shooting into a crowd-ish, maybe. I didn't really see too many people that they were shooting at, but
right.
Yeah, I see bullets firing. I don't see many people getting hit. And
I've seen them shoot clearly into a body, like three of them, maybe four I can account for. And I did see them like storm into that house when it was empty, but like call for the people. And they were clearly probably going to try to take hostages, but
I've seen hostage videos too. I've seen that.
Yeah, right. I've seen hostage, right. I've seen, but like a handful. But, and okay, so based on that, okay, that's enough right there. That's a horrific set of war crimes. You take one civilian as hostage, you kill one civilian deliberately. Yeah, yes, war crime. What do you mean? Like that's 100% bad. So why then do they continue to insist on the beheaded babies and the raped women? They never just say it was civilians were killed, which is true. If they said that, I would have no argument. Yeah, civilians were killed. That's right there. Bad enough. But they keep trotting this out. And so I think that is because if they did only talk about what actually happened, first of all, I think the ratio of civilian to military casualties is completely they're not even reporting it. I want to know that number. How many, they haven't even said this. How many IDF soldiers were killed of the 1,400? Crucial information, right? Because it's all about killing civilians. That's the bad thing to do. Attacking the IDF, that's actually quite defensible, for people living in Gaza. Like it's hard to argue against them doing that. How many civilians did they actually kill deliberately? Now we know they took about 200 hostages, and that's not good either. But then again, as Max Blumenthal and Norman Finkelstein and people like that will point out to you, there are currently 6,000 Palestinian prisoners of war in Israel. And that's why they did it. Hamas took those hostages very deliberately to exchange for those prisoners. It's the only way they could get the 6,000 people who are political prisoners. And by the way, a few dozen of them are children under 18 in Israeli prisons being held there as terrorists. So that's why and so it's like,
I think they're focusing on atrocities that they're focusing on the babies and the raped women to appeal to emotions and to dehumanize the populace that they're about to ethnically cleanse. Right. I think it's as simple as that.
Right. No, for sure. I was getting at that I believe that if we looked at the real numbers of who was killed and how they were killed in Israel, and we talked about that, it would look to everyone like a regular war, which is what it is. And that's what people are missing. It's not only a regular war, it's a war that's been going on for 75 years, or at least in Gaza, at least since 2006, for sure. Since the siege of Gaza began, after they elected Hamas and Israel started bombing Gaza like fish in a barrel. Unbelievable violence. But it's a war. And I think the casualties, I'm guessing, the actual casualties committed by Hamas are going to be horrific because they include even one civilian. But I'm betting you, and this is what I'm getting to, I'm betting you those numbers are going to look actually better than, for sure, damn near every Israeli attack on Gaza. I mean, going back to 2006, just wildly disproportionate attacks, killing, as I said, 5 to 10 to 20 times as many people as Israeli casualties. If people saw the real numbers, I'm betting you, I'll bet you anything, it's going to look like a regular a regular army doing regular stuff, along the way killing civilians, which happens in every war. That's not to excuse it. That's a reason to oppose war. I'm just saying that it's going to look like the wars of every other country in terms of casualties and in terms of atrocities. I don't think they're worse than the Ukrainians and the Russians. I don't think they're worse than the US soldiers in Iraq. I would bet you. Yeah, and in fact, US soldiers took hostages too in certain situations, for sure, to do certain negotiations on the ground. Like, they wouldn't report about it. We'd hear about it later. But of course, when things get hot, it's often useful to take somebody's uncle and hold them and say, tell us where the IED is buried, or we're going to take them away, like, of course. All this stuff happens in war. I still have seen not a shred of evidence of rape. And rape, mass rape, is always the first thing trotted out in terms of claims of atrocities, basically in any war. You'll see this. And I used to believe it. I used to think that, in fact, I remember I lectured about this a couple of times. There's a going theory that mass rape is the way that invading armies have marked their territory, have sort of symbolically conquered the land, right? By raping, by symbolically taking the women, represents taking the land, right? It's the ultimate defeat of the enemy. There's almost always like a scant evidence for this stuff. It's really hard to, and in this case, I still have seen zip for evidence, not anything. I haven't even heard any testimony, nothing, not a day. You'd think you'd heard something. All I've heard is women were raped, but like, oh yeah, you saw it happening? Did you see it about to happen? Did you see someone talk about it? Nothing. But they continue to say this, raping women and beheading babies, raping. Listen to any pro-Israel person right now. They will start off with that. Raping women, beheading babies. If you are pro-Palestine, you are for people who rape women and behead babies. It's really dishonest.
One point I wanted to get out before we end up here. Michael Tracy has been saying this, but the longer that the United States Congress and the House of Representatives does not have a speaker, the safer we are as a country. Because you have, a near unanimous support for Israel minus maybe 2 or 3 members, and untold spending and untold declarations of authorizations of military force that are being suspended right now.
Yeah. And now Biden is trying to push through a bill giving, I saw some ungodly numbers. I need to confirm this, but some huge numbers to both Ukraine and Israel. But the other thing I saw was, and this is the real backbreaker.
Oh, real quick. Yeah, we're broadcasting while he's allegedly addressing the nation about why we need to fund Israel and Ukraine at the same time.
He's doing it. Oh, we'll get this. While you're watching that speech, have this in mind. There's a report today also that a huge amount of artillery shells that were being sent from the Lima, Ohio factory where our artillery shells are produced, that were headed to Ukraine, have been diverted to Israel. Ukraine is literally no longer getting stuff because of this. And that is the end of the Ukraine war, everybody. That's a wrap. I mean, now it's just a question of, how they decide to finish it, but it's over. I mean, Ukraine now has zero chance.
Is that another Henry Kissinger quote that it's dangerous to be an enemy of the United States, but it's even more dangerous to be their friend?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. No, but it often is. That's right. I mean, in Ukraine's case, it certainly is. And you might even say that in Israel's case, it is. If Israel again hadn't gotten support in 1967 from the United States, it might have ceased to exist. And if it ceased to exist, we would have a lot more Jews living today because they would not have been killed by angry Palestinians displaced by Israel. Oh, Lord. All right. Yeah, it's been ugly. The social scene has shifted, I clearly have lost some friends. I've lost respect for certain people. There are certain people I wonder about, some of whom we've named on this show, who I'm not sure how they're going to feel about me now. I mean, I have not been, I don't think, terribly strident, I've been sort of open-minded about things. I mean, but still, things are so ridiculous. And David Bernstein is very angry at me still and calling me some names. He called me a ghoul and he called me a rube. These are like what nerds call you, I think, right? When
Rube.
they get really worked up, like, you rube,
or a toady.
You believe anything Hamas will say. And then you're a ghoul for not being mad about the bit, for like questioning. That's what by the way, that's what he said I was a ghoul about, for questioning whether there were beheaded babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's anti-Semitic to want proof of outrageous claims.
It's like, when I talk about Jewish self-hatred, it's like, oh, you want to see the dead Jewish babies? Is that going to make you happy?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather that not be the case. You want it to be the case. Think about that. You want there to be dead Jewish babies. You want there to be. And you're mad at me that I'm pointing out that there aren't dead Jewish babies. Holy shit.
Yeah. But my problem with this conflict is that both sides are defined by their victimhood status. And so both sides feel entirely justified to wage a war of annihilation of the other side. And they feel...
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm pessimistic. Yeah. I mean, here's what Netanyahu and the Likudniks and all the right-wing Zionists and most Zionists now think. Here's what they're right about. That a lot of people on the left and a lot of people on my side do not admit. Yeah, I think most Palestinians do want to drive the Jews into the sea, meaning the Israelis, not Jews. They don't care about Jews. They care about Israelis. Yeah, I think they want the destruction of the state of Israel. Yeah, for sure. I mean, not just Hamas and Hezbollah. Well, yes, I think the dominant majority, I can't prove this, but I would bet you, and there have been some surveys on this, there's been some evidence of this, I would bet you a lot, and I've seen this for a long time, that most Palestinians absolutely are for the annihilation of Israel. Yes, that is true. Now, what do you want to do about it, though, is the question. Kill all of them? Push all of them out of Gaza? 2 million people, killing however many along the way? Is that what you want to do about it? Okay. That's the problem. I mean, yeah, we can't solve it. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You were going to say, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, a little bit. I have heard some Hamas people express that they are grateful for the state of Israel and that all the Jews are in one place. Like, it seems some ethnic hatred of Jews is involved in the Hamas side.
It's a container. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have to go out into the world and seek them all out one by one.
It's a Jew-tainer. Yeah. All right, we gotta go. We gotta go be anti-Semitic somewhere else. Put the URL up. So if you want to come yell at me about my hatred of Jews and my love of Allah, come to Unregistered Live, which is right after every Unreported. It's a hangout on Zoom with Michael and me for an hour and a half after Unreported every Thursday night. We're gonna go there right now. And chill. Go to patreon.com/unregistered to become a member at any level, a patron at any level. And the URL for tonight's Unregistered Live will be right there. Click on it and join us. All right, Michael, I will see you over there. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, that point about the Nazis being a modern creation was great. Like, I think that's really central, is that, like, the barbarism that we see now is a total modern creation.
They were ultra modernists, in fact. That's right. Think about the aesthetics. Think about the clean lines, and think about the Leni Riefenstahl film. I mean, ultra modern. Think about the uniforms. Think about the design of their awesomely sexy airplanes and tanks and stuff. They They had that modern panache in their aesthetics.
You can't commit a genocide with
without style.
With water tube rockets,
Right. And also they were all about efficiency and social engineering and all that. Oh yeah. Eugenics, all super progressive, modern. All right. Got to go. My voice is running out.
Peace.
Peace.